Well, we have reached the end. Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and welcome to the last video where I break down each and every position of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Today, we are talking about special teams. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I, for one, am heavily invested in special teams. My heart goes out to all of the kickers and punters and long snappers that have to go out there and kick field goals, punt balls, snap the ball. You know what they all do. Every time I see a Bucs kicker go out there and take a kick, I'm anxious, I'm excited. Are they going to make it? Are they going to miss it? It's usually that they miss it, but that's not the point. You know, I've seen a lot of kickers come and go, you know, a lot of kickers. Matt Bryant years ago, and then all these other kickers, you know, more recently. It was Roberto Aguayo, Nick Folk, Patrick Murray, now Chandler Catanzaro, and Trevor Moore, I think his name is. I can't remember off the top of my head. But the point is that, you know, I'm heavily invested in special teams, and I hope you guys are as well. I just checked. It's Trevor Moore, by the way. So, without further ado, let's get started. And thank you guys so much for keeping up to date with all these series. A lot of people said that they liked it, and they liked the fact that I was doing daily uploads, obviously. We're in a very slow part of the off-season, so I might not be able to keep up with daily uploads, but I'm going to try and do at least every other day uploads. So, keep out for that. Anyway, the point is we have we have 4 people to cover here, and that is our kickers, our punters, and our long snapper. So for kicker, you have Chandler Catanzaro along with Trevor Moore. For punter, you have Brian Anger, and for long snapper, you have Drew Ferris. Drew Ferris is actually part of a very long line of long snappers that the Bucs have had. We've had Garrison Sanborn. We've had oh my gosh, I can't remember their names off the top of my head, but I know we've been rotating long snappers in the past. Andrew Padola, anybody remember him? I remember him. And I think even Darius Taylor was our long snapper for like 1 punt last year. So, you know, hey, just saying, it can happen. It can happen, you know. Long snapper's an important position. Yeah, that guy's really got to freaking hike the ball back there. I don't know why you wouldn't make it your backup center or something, but that's not the point. Anyway, Drew Ferris. Let's talk about Drew Ferris real quick, okay? I don't Drew Ferris, I'm sure, is a very lovely long snapper. And, you know, I've tried to do long snapping before personally, and keep in mind, I am not an athletic human being at all. You don't see any muscles there at all. But the point is that you've got to have some muscular arms and a good sense of direction whenever you're long snapping. Otherwise, you can mess up a whole punt. It can get blocked. You know, you got to have really good timing with everything. Otherwise, it could get blocked, or a bad return. You know, a bad punt. He might shank it because you didn't. You know, let's say the punter's trying to catch it right here in his chest, and you do a bad snap and it goes right where his shoulder would go. That can really mess up a punt. It takes time to readjust if you're the punter, and the coverage team and the blocking team can get closer to you, and it could end up ruining an entire punt, giving the receiving team amazing field position, or even resulting in a touchdown for the opposing team. So long snapping's a big deal if you're Drew Ferris, and if you really think about it and you really look into it, it can affect the flow of a game, and it can really affect the momentum of a game as well. Back in the past, at least in my recent memory, a lot of big momentum shifts happen on special teams for the most part. You know, if there's a big return for a touchdown, if there's a blocked punt for a touchdown, that team usually ends up just doing pretty darn well the rest of the game, because it's such a exciting and exhilarating play that it gives you a lot of momentum moving forward the rest of the game, so you can't afford to mess up if you're the long snapper. Moving on to Brian Anger, though, the punter, he's got another big job to do as well. I don't know if any of you guys follow Pat McAfee during the NFL season on Twitter, but he really goes into great detail about holding the ball, you know, how you should kick it, stuff like that. And, you know, punters in the current league are doing a lot of interesting things with how they hold the ball and drop it, and because they try to get certain spins on it, or they try to get it in certain corners or to certain positions and whatnot. I think Brian Anger is one of the better punters out there. He was drafted formerly in the 3rd round by the Jacksonville Jaguars, so he does have a certain degree of pedigree. moving forward with him. Honestly, I really like Brian Anger compared to Michael Keenan. I was not a very big Michael Keenan fan when he was on the team. So moving forward with Anger, I hope we keep Anger until he retires, if I'm being honest. I think he's a very good punter. He gets good hang time. He gets it well spotted, and the coverage team's top-notch. I think the Bucs honestly have one of the better punt coverage teams in the league, and I'm dead serious. Like, I think they have some of the best gunners with Josh Robinson. I'll even give Ryan Smith credit. Ryan Smith is a pretty darn good punt coverage player. They used to have an ace in Russell Shepard, who is now a free agent. He might even possibly come back to the Buccaneers. I'm always hoping. Let me know if you want me to make a video talking about Russell Shepard coming back. Although I don't know if that'd be a little bit not necessary. I don't know. Anyway, the point is that, you know, a punter obviously needs a good long snapper, and he needs to be able to place the ball well, and Brian Anger is one of the better guys at just placing the ball. I don't know if he necessarily has phenomenal leg power, because we don't really get to see it that much showcased. He's kind of more, I think Anger, to me, is more of an accuracy guy. But I feel if he did have to, he could get some pretty good high punts, I guess I should say. But he does fine. You know, I'll never forget the one punt, I'm sure you all remember it, where Anger booted it, and it bounced, and right before it hit the end zone, I think it was like a combination of Ryan Smith and Josh Robinson got it pinned at the 1, and that kind of field position and that kind of ability to pin your opponent in their own end zone, essentially, and in their own 20-yard line, that's a really big deal, because if you're a defense, in my mind, if I was a defensive player and I saw that, you know, our guy Anger punted the ball and it got down in the 20, I'd get really excited, because that means either there's going to be some type of error because they're going to be rushed, and, you know, they're going to have to always watch their backs to make sure that they're not rolling back in the end zone. If you're the quarterback, you have to watch that you're not rolling back in the end zone. So that creates opportunities for big plays, be it a sack, a safety, an interception return for a touchdown, a fumble return for a touchdown. You know, there's a lot of stuff that can happen, and you start building momentum. Special teams, to me, is one of the bigger forms of momentum building for a team. It's especially for punting. You know, punting is a very, like, big burst of momentum depending on how certain things go. And for kicking, it's more of like a slow build of momentum. You know, it's kind of chipping away at building up momentum. You know, I think both kicking and punting play a very key role in football. Obviously, it's 1/3 of the game, special teams. And, you know, punting's a very big deal, and I think Brian Anger's one of the best. So, yeah, there you go. Anyway, moving on finally to kicker, you have Trevor Moore and Chandler Catanzaro. So for Trevor Moore, it's kind of a rough position for him, because he was brought in as an undrafted free agent, and he's competing a guy against Chandler Catanzaro that we just signed to a 3-year, $9 million deal, something along those lines. So it's going to be tough for Trevor Moore. I think usually what this means, in my opinion, is that if Chandler Catanzaro doesn't work, and you know, obviously Trevor Moore is just an extra kicking leg for camp, just in case anything happens, you know, very urgently, or, you know, maybe there's an injury, something like that. But I feel that Trevor Moore, if I was a GM, which I will never be, more likelier than not, I will never be a GM. But if I was, I would probably get as many kickers in as possible just to see options. You know, the Bucs had kicking tryouts last year, so they kind of know what to expect from a handful of guys. And this is just another example of, okay, let's just bring in another kicker, keep notes on how he did, and if we need certain situations down the line where, you know, if Catanzaro doesn't work out, and we find ourselves in a pinch for a kicker, we have a list of kickers that we've seen kick before at our facility, and we can maybe call them up and bring them in for more work and see what they can do. That's kind of what I feel Trevor Moore's role is going to be, is not just being a camp body. He might end up on a practice squad. I don't know. People usually don't carry kickers on practice squads. The Chargers did with Roberto Aguayo, but that's just a different story. He could end up on the practice squad, but I feel it's just kind of let's get a look at this kid and keep him on a short list of guys to call up if anything bad happens to our kicking situation. That kind of thing, and I can appreciate that. And then finally, Chandler Catanzaro. So, when talking about Chandler Catanzaro, one of the big things that I talked about whenever I talked in his free agency signing video, I liked how he makes mental targets whenever he kicks. You know, he'll visualize, you know, he'll obviously look between the goalposts, you know, like this. Let's just say my face is the middle of the goalpost, and he'll pick targets, You know, he'll pick targets to where, in his mind, he should kick, and then he'll do that. I like that. It might not be, obviously, a perfect method, because no method is perfect. You just kind of have to go out there and do it. But I do like that visually picturing in your mind targets to kick at. You know, I feel like that's a very good way to do it, and it's a very smart way to do it. And, you know, for special teams, you have to pay attention to all of the weather conditions. That's a big thing. And the reason why a lot of punters, I guess I should say, love going to Denver is because it's, you know, it's such a great place to punt due to its high elevation and stuff like that. So if you're punting and kicking, you have to pay attention to weather conditions. And Catanzaro spoke on that whenever he was signed, and he said he would talk with the Buccaneers special teams coordinator, that they would get together and go through all of the weather patterns, stuff like that, how winds work in Florida, and just general, you know, there's a lot. When you think about it, there's a lot that can go into kicking and into punting. And I'm sure that Anger and Catanzaro are both working together to get certain aspects of their special teams unit together, and just really formulating game plans and just giving each other tips and stuff like that, you know. And then, you know, if you're Chandler Catanzaro, you also have to work with Brian Anger for holding purposes, for whenever kicking field goals and kicking extra points. They always say laces out, and that's kind of a big deal, because if you kick that and if you kick the laces, you could end up shanking it, you could just end up missing. It's a big deal. Laces do need to be out, and so they're probably going to work on that in the off season as well. They've probably already worked on it already. They're just going to continue to do so. You got to get really, if you're the holder, you got to get timing perfectly. You know, you got to make sure you get it up in time. You don't have a lot of time. You only have a couple of seconds to get that ball set before Catanzaro is going to come and kick it, and you have to make sure it's a perfect ball every single time. So there's a, you know, there's a lot that goes into holding. There's a lot that goes into weather conditions. There's a lot that goes into, if you're punting, how you hold the ball, and if you spin it, and, you know, kicking corners and stuff like that. And if you're Catanzaro, there's a lot that goes into making mental images of where you're going to want to kick the ball whenever you're making field goals and whatnot. And you also have to pay attention to wind, because if it's super windy and you kick it right and the wind's going this way, it can just end up shanking right real bad. Happened with Nick Folk a couple of times last year. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird that Nick Folk, the whole Nick Folk, Roberto Aguayo, and Patrick Murray saga, that was like less than a year ago. That is crazy to me. But, yeah, guys, I just made around a 12-minute video talking about kicking, punting, and long snapping. So I thank you guys so much for watching this video, and thank you so much for watching the series of me breaking down each position. I do hope you all enjoyed it. I had a blast making it. Lasted around 20-ish days, I think a little over 20 days, if not at 20 days. So I had a lot of fun, and obviously I have a lot of content coming up soon. And as always, I wish that you guys will suggest stuff down in the comment section below, because this is for you guys. You know, without you, this channel would be nothing, and we are keeping on rolling to 1,500 subscribers and eventually 2,000. So we're doing pretty good with this channel, and it's all because of you guys. So thank you so much. As always, don't forget to like the video, and if you're new, go ahead and subscribe. Follow the Facebook page, as well as join the Facebook group. Share this on Twitter, share this on Facebook, share this on Instagram, share this wherever you want. Snapchat, maybe, who knows. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video. But until then, goodbye for now, guys. See ya.